guess. Okay, it's working. Yeah, so when you were talking about it, Sachin, I just remembered that I was talking to a few of my friends, old college friends and school friends, and I was just talking to them, and those who are doing jobs, they were. I was constantly hearing from them that how frequently they're changing, the organizations. So I was just trying to understand with them that, what is that thing? Why are they changing? Of course, there are a few people who are not, like a few who have been in an organization for 5 years, 6 years now. But most of them, like six, seven out of 10 people I see, they change their organizations like every 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. So this is kind of, a very visible issue, and at least what I can observe in my circle.
Yes, yes, totally.
Yeah.
So, I would like to start the conversation. Yes, Vidya is saying. So, Vidya, you are able to talk, or is any problem in the mic? Okay. So, before we start, I would like to get some inputs from all these people who have joined: Brijesh, Pradeep, Jasprit, Vidya just left. Yeah, she's joined back. So, um, just what do you guys, the observation be on this topic?
Am I
So,
audible?
one question.
Vidya, you're trying to say something?
Yes.
Your
Am I
voice is
audible?
very bleak.
You're audible,
Mm,
but it's very faint voice.
okay, because I have headset on. That's the reason I'm asking.
Yeah, this
It's
is better.
better now.
It's better.
All right. I can I think relate so much to what Anamika answered as a point that when you talk about changing jobs, I think if I talk about myself, in the last 16 years of my career, I think my average has been with any company about 3 years. And after 3 years, I want to change. So I think I would really like to hear, from others. Is this trend a positive trend, or is there something that we need to really look at and reflect upon?
Yes, yes. There are few points which I will share, and definitely there is something to reflect upon because this problem, I am not sure how much you all know. This problem is actually not a very easy one, to be honest. Like, I'll share the points, what I know, based on my experience of work with millennials and what we have done with the other clients, as well as what I have heard from the experts as well. So I would share, uh, and the solutions are not going to be like quick fixes. This is actually a very big problem. You will know when we'll talk about it. So, um, but before I share that, I want to also know other people's experience on this call as well. That what have you experienced in terms of dealing with millennials? So, Brijesh, Pradeep, Jasprit, in your day-to-day work, what have you observed?
Hi Sachin, this is this side.
Yes.
In my 12 years of career, I have almost changed my five jobs.
So
Right.
you are a millennial yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So the main reason of changing because the job or the profile or there are some non-monetary benefit from the organizations, which pushed me to go for the next level. I'm in current organization. I'm staying more than 5 years, more than 4 years. Because of there's so many things which affects our decision from move one organization to another. Yes, salary is a topmost, but apart from the salary, there are some other non-benefits things like insurance is one of the major factors. Your challenging path, what is the I mean say what is your growth? How do you find your job is challenging? And obviously, uh, money matters. That is the topmost. But apart from that, what is the career prospects in the organization?
Mm.
That is the reason.
Mm.
This is also from my side.
Okay, thanks, Brijesh. Uh, Vidya is saying for me, it's lack of appreciation and growth opportunities. Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Now
thanks.
here, apart from that, I have worked in the organizations where there is no non-financial benefit in the terms of there is no insurance from employer for the employee and family. Not even a minor.
There.
There is no
So,
work-life balance. These are the things.
and what made you work over there? So, non-monetary benefits, there were, why did you work in those organizations?
Because the time when I joined, actually I got a reference from one of my known person. He told me, come and it is a startup. We will push and we will have all the this kind of benefits. And I worked with her for almost 4 years, but nothing had happened. Then I got married. Then there is some no, maternity benefit and other things. Then I realized it is not a right place. If something happened tomorrow to me, nobody is going to take care. In my current organization, I'm covered with the three kinds of insurance. There is group mediclaim, personal life insurance, and accidental. That kind of benefits. It is somewhere pushing me. Yes, you are at the right place.
Hmm.
So that is important, sir.
Okay, okay, thanks. Let's hear from others as well. Pradeep, do you want to share anything your experience of dealing with millennials? Are you a millennial yourself as well, Pradeep?
No, I am not, unfortunately, but I'm pre that era, but dealing with a lot of millennials. So, definitely the challenge on the stability and in terms of long term horizon alignment is definitely a challenge. And if that de alignment happens, then finding reason is not difficult, because for example whether it is insurance or any other factor, this is something which are available by spending hardly 20-25,000 a year. And if you're getting the pay package which is 1 lakh more than the competition, then definitely those part goes away. I'm not covering that particular point. What I'm trying to bring in is the factors which removes the alignment factor with the company, so that people are not looking at from that long term horizon. That's all. Otherwise, there are a lot of factors to be discussed here.
Yes, yes. Okay, great. Thanks, Pradeep. I will be touching on this point anyway. Yes, there is a lot to be said on this point. Kavita, anything from your side? What's your experience being dealing with millennials at work, and also, are you a millennial yourself? Kavita, you are on mute.
Hi, sir. Sir, I'm just listening. I'll sometimes, after some time, I'll just give my views.
Okay, okay. Yes, please. What about you?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, I've been in the system for the last 15 years. That's my third job. So, yes, lack of motivation, respect, and the monetary also. And moreover, the cultural also change. Where when you, because my experience was with the startup company. So, in the startup, when they give you that soil of growing and nurturing, they give you that empathy and feeling of care and giving of that caringness. That okay, they trust on you. Then you always put your 100% challenge to fulfill all the duties with that responsibility. So gradually, if that perspective and culture change, that disrespect and the non-worthiness of this comes into the system. I think so that really now I can see the change after 15 years. The management has changed. It's weak leadership. Nepotism is on high. So I can well because I'm badly looking out for change, but that's how I'm not able to get that. But yes, I can well see that why the change and why the lack of motivation comes into the human beings. Now that everybody says that earlier the culture was different and now the culture is different. So I can well correlate with this topic.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Thanks, Jaspreet. Yes, this point that you mentioned about weak leadership, yes, this will actually relate quite well as well. So I'll share some points from my side, and we can open the discussion from there also. Um, So I'll share maybe 3 or 4 points, 3 or 4 key points that where this problem is coming from. And as I mentioned, that this is not a very easy fix problem, to be honest, and you'll know what I mean. Um, First and foremost, this problem is linked to the fact that millennials were not parented properly. So the problem is not with the millennials, the problem is with the parents. So 80s and 90s parents, these are 80s and 90s kids. So 80s and 90s parenting style is attributed to the to what we are facing today. This has been one of the biggest reason of why we see what we see. The parenting style has been not very good. That happened, and mostly that is attributed to the fact that the parents of this generation were not very happy with the parenting style of their parents. So it was like a rebellious generation which wanted to do the opposite of what their parents have done to them, how they have been brought up. And because of that, they threw away all the concepts of parenting that existed and experimented basically with non-proven parenting methods, and that is one of the the biggest reasons why we see what we see, a whole generation which is not being parented properly. Now why I say that this is a big problem is because of this reason. Now these people have grown up, now they are adults, they cannot be parented again, so they are now adults grown up, and this slack that their parents have created has to be picked up by the corporate now. That's the biggest challenge. There is no other option as such to this problem. Obviously the option is don't hire millennials. That's one of the options, but that option will also not be an option soon. So given the practicality and reality of the situation, you cannot just run away from the situation by saying let's not even hire millennials because of this. That is not practical. That's not going to work. So they were not parented properly, and now this cannot be undone. There is nothing we can do about it. It's done. But this slack needs to be picked up by corporate now. So as Jaspreet mentioned, weak leadership. Again, catch 22 situation comes is that the leaders who are supposed to be the role models and supposed to now pick this slack are the ones who have created this kind of generation at home themselves. So yes, Pradeep, I'll come to you. I see that you've raised your hand, so I'll just finish for my point and then I'll come to you. No problem.
Sure.
Yeah. So the leaders who uh, have created such a generation, who have contributed in creating such a generation at home, who have not been ideal parents, we cannot expect them to be good leaders for this generation at work. It's just lack of their understanding about parenting and the style. So we cannot expect that a person who has raised such children at home will be able to guide the, the people at work properly in a different way. That would be an impractical, improbable expectation from that person. So yes, it kind of just uh, intertwines this problem that people who are in the leadership role, who are supposed to be the role models for this generation, are the very people who have contributed in creating this problem to begin with. And this is the reason why I mentioned in the beginning that this is not a very easy problem to solve. It is much deeper than what it looks like. So I'll share more, but let's go to Pradeep. Pradeep, you wanted to say something? Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so Sachin, my pointers when we were talking about how the parenting has been done in that era, vis-a-vis the parenting which is done even for Gen Z, right? Generation Z is also in market now after millennials, and myself being in generation X person, so I have at least seen the journey. I know the population set in India is huge, and the kind of distribution of the classes across is huge. But my point is, beyond parenting also there has to be major factors as far as stability or retention comes in, because generation Z is also giving the same struggle as millennials. So either and parenting every generation to generation will keep changing, because whenever a person grows up, becomes adults, and goes to the family way where they have to become a parent and teach to their children, they try to pick up from where on the way they have been parented, and their learnings of what was good for them, what was bad for them. And that's a pretty tricky question, and I think it has to I'm sure you must have many other pointers as well, but somehow my viewpoint on making it on the parenting side may not have that direct linkage, because parenting will always keep evolving with time, and every generation, the typical joke is there that by the time you realize what your father said was right, you're already a father, and there is a child who says that what you're saying is wrong. So it's linked to that. I'm just trying to correlate it with that factor, but I'm not able to in my mind. So that's
Sure.
why I raised hand and thought of sharing my viewpoint.
No, no, you are right about it. And yes, yes, there is definitely a correlation, and the correlation will become a little bit more obvious as we talk about few more points. And for that reason, let me just park this question aside for next 15-20 minutes, because
Sure.
good correlation definitely, and we have not touched upon all the points. But even after I will share all the other points, um, I feel that you may come to the conclusion that at the end of the day, everything links back to that parenting style. So let's put a hold on this for topic for a minute now. Like, let's
Sure.
just
Yeah.
put it aside, and 15-20 minutes later we will revisit this when we have uh, put across all the other points also. Cool. Thanks, Pradeep. Vidya, yes, you want to say something?
I think my point here is that one, the partly I agree to what Pradeep said, that parenting will evolve over a period of time. And I know you just mentioned that you're going to be revisiting that point, so I'm not going to be dwelling on that. However, I think one of the reasons that I think there is a disconnect here is also about uh, that that resistance to even change. Like just the way we talk about things evolving and moving, what existed at some point of time today probably it's a different world altogether. So sometimes it's also the thought processes and the ideologies conflict that can also cause a lot of tension between both the millennials and the people before that. So I think that acceptance there is also very important.
Acceptance of what, Vidya? I didn't get.
Acceptance is that while one part of the world comes from a lot of wisdom and experience that they've gone through, the other one also has some experience based on their way of seeing the world. So it's not that the millennials have no clue of how the life is to be lived. So the point is that I think it has to be a mutual thing on both the sides to really have this journey going together. Because a lot of times what I see is again, and I'll probably pick a bit from what
From
Justice also said.
acceptance from parent side, not from millennial side. Is that what you're talking about?
One is from the parent side and also from the millennial side, both. So it is like it's like give and take both. So right now, what I see as a conflict point is because one says that okay, this is wrong. The other one says that why is it wrong? So when when I am doing something, or when I'm showing you an efficient way, why do you still want to do something which is an old rudimentary way? There's a better way of doing things. So probably at that point of time, when the earlier generation was working on something, they probably had one approach, but with times changing, there are multiple approaches of solving a same problem. So can we not look at that multiple ways of doing? Why do we have to still stick to the one old proven way? And that is where the conflict comes when people are struggling to prove their point. One says, I am right, you are wrong. The other one says, why am I wrong? Why am I not right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So that's one. And coming back to organizations, I think a lot of times in organizations, one is the lack of leadership. And the second thing, as you mentioned, that if it's the role of the organization now to come, which comes into picture of correcting that parenting part, suddenly I think when at home the person hasn't really received that treatment and there has been a a gap in the parenting, and now somebody in the office starts doing it. How are you expecting a millennial to be okay with it, because they are not okay at home of this one, and now at home also there are challenges in terms of that relationship. Won't the same thing happen even at workplace, because at work somebody's trying to do that parenting now?
Can, yes, that is exactly right. What you're saying is right. So it depends on how you are doing it. And for that reason only, I have repeated this point that it's not going to be an easy problem to solve. It's going to be quite tough. So I guess, of course, that is going to be the case. So um, today in this conversation, the objective is more to highlight and become aware of where the problems are and what could possibly be looked into. But definitely, when it comes down to implementing something and solving these problems, more brainstorming and more sensitivity needs to come into picture. It is not something which we can just say do this, do that. Definitely not going to work like that. And your point is correct that people who the generation who has not listened to their own parents at home, why would they listen to someone at work? So definitely, so that sensitivity needs to be taken into consideration. um, at the same time, who is doing it? The person who is doing it, are they capable of doing it? So another thing that organization has to also look into is not just because a leader is at a senior position or we feel that this person has kids and has experience so they can do it. No, there is needs to be more background check needs to be done in the phase that have they been good parents to their own kids? Do they even know what to do? Just because someone is a certain age, we cannot just expect now let them also handle this. No, they will not be. They will actually ruin it further. So more needs to be digged into this thing is who is getting the responsibility of doing this now. Are they even qualified to do it? Or do they even know what to do? Have they even done it with their own kids? Unless those questions are answered, this problem is not going to be, we are not qualified to solve this problem. And for that reason, I will keep repeating the point that this is not an easy problem to solve. So, more will build up on this point as we talk because this is not a very linear problem. Although things will condense to one. So, what I do is in my line of work, what I have observed or what I try to do now is look into patterns of why some problems exist. And I have often seen that if we can spend our time in solving the individual problems, we can treat the fruits or we can treat the roots. It's up to us. If we treat the roots, it's going to be a much tough and more time consuming job to treat the roots, but it is sustainable and it is a long term fix. It fixes the problem for good. But if we only fix the fruits, if we only see a problem in the fruit and we keep just putting spraying pesticide on it or do whatever to the fruit, it's a very temporary fix. So it doesn't fix the problem as such. Uh, so in this context, the root over here has been the parenting. the parenting of this generation has been the root, although many factors have contributed to it, no doubt about that, and we will be talking about those. I'll be touching upon them. Many factors have contributed to it, but if I have to condense it down to the roots of the problem, it's been parenting. That's what comes down to. So again, not being able to listen to it and follow it. So where does this? Another factor that that plays a role in this scenario is this generation is very much dependent on technology. The social skills are almost nil. The social skills of this generation um, have not been very well developed. So that is one of the, so they may be very well connected on social media platforms with a lot of people, but when it comes down to handling emotions personally and connecting with people personally, this generation does not do very well. They are not very good at interpersonal skills. They are not developed, and once again comes down to parenting style itself. So where this comes, the root comes from this is 80s and 90s has been an era where the women empowerment and the rise of the unit families have been on rise. So before that, people used to believe in the joint families and all that. So I'm not saying anything that this is right, that is wrong, and all that. Please don't hear me from that point of view. I'm not saying family is good and unit families. No, no, nothing like that. I'm just putting in a point over here that things are done, but they were not thought through very well. Or maybe we were going through an experimental phase at that time, and and at that time we didn't know how to handle those things. So our parents or those generation parents didn't know what to do. So not saying they shouldn't have done that. All I'm saying is that those things have created these issues which nobody knew how to handle it, and as a consequence this generation had to face the problems. So the rise of both the parents going to work, all of a sudden living in a unit family, not having the extended support, both the kids being um, left on somebody else to nurture and care. So although yes, it's fine to put the child in a crash or whatever, but at the end of the day, they are not parents, and we don't know the value system of those people who are working there, what kind of values they are putting in our kids. So most of the time, the kids were looked after in a way that they will be just watching TV or whatever, playing video games and all that. So the the generation has grown up by heavily using technology and hiding behind that technology and not able to express their emotions very intelligently um, to others. Combined that with the fact that parents were also very busy, like settling up in a new structure, both working, not finding enough time uh, to give to their kids and handhold them in that scenario. So once again, not saying the parents should not have done this or nothing like that. I'm just only sharing the observations that has been the case and that has been how things have panned out. And and for that reason, um, kids have not really seen the um, what you call it, the tough side of life, so to speak. Parents have always felt that they would like to give their kids everything that they couldn't get when they were growing up. They have seen a certain lack in their growing up. So they had this aspiration that I would want to give my child a very good and convenient life. I want to give them everything that I didn't have, which is a good aspiration, no doubt about that. But I think there is a saying, Martin Luther King has said this, that tough times produce uh, tough men, and then tough men produce easier time produce tough men again, something like that. So there's that saying that he I think you can Google it, and it says there's a cycle that when the time is tough, it produces tough people, but then tough people work towards creating easier times, and then when they have created easier times, it produces easier people, and then when people become easier, it then produces tough time for them again. We are seeing that happening. So the parents have faced a tough time, and their aspiration was to create easy life and good life for their kids, which they did. And because of that, now we are seeing a generation who has not faced that toughness, that competition, or I mean, so many places kids are just given certificate to even participate. Even someone is coming last, they are given participation certificate just so they don't feel bad about missing out. And this is a proven fact. Science has proven this thing that when you give awards to people who don't deserve it, they also know they don't deserve it. So it makes them feel bad. It devalues the value of that award for those people who worked for it, who earned for it. So basically, you are averaging out everyone just so people don't feel bad about this thing. This is not creating toughness in this generation. So all of a sudden, in their whole life, they have seen this happening. Parents feeding them all their desires and everything parents want to feed them, and the education system working towards making them feel very comfortable, and then they enter corporate where they now they have to compete, and in order to get a raise, in order to get promotion, they have to now they see that okay, I can't get a promotion just because I desire it, just because I can just demand it. I have to prove it. I have to run the race. And before I used to just get a consolation participation certificate anyway. So now I have to earn for it. So all of a sudden they feel this existential crisis, this void that nobody prepared them for. Combine this with the fact of instant gratification. Today, when we were growing up and all that, we used to uh, even when we have to watch a series, we have to wait for 1 week for that series to come out. So there was an element of patience and all that that was indirectly created in us. Now what? Now you can just binge watch anything anytime. You don't even have to wait. You just order something, and by Amazon it will arrive tomorrow. So the instant gratification has also become a part where the parenting style has not prepared them for this patience, for looking forward to something, to appreciate what they are getting, and all that. These things have become ingrained in this generation now. And now they are adults. Now we cannot reparent them at home. So this slack needs to be picked up by corporate, by the leaders. Now the problem, as I mentioned before, is that if the leaders themselves have done this to their kids at home, they will not be able to solve this problem at work also. So catch 22 situation is who is solving the problem and what is their qualification to solve this problem. Okay, I think I've talked enough. I'll take a break. So what? Yes, Vidya, go ahead.
So, Sachin, from a work standpoint, there's this one saying that I've heard people say multiple times that, it's like, uh, I have experience, older than you, gone through all this, ऐसी बाल सफेद नहीं हुए हैं and all that. I mean, when people make these statements at work, what does that really indicate? And this is exactly where my earlier point was that everybody has got their own experiences. So, when at work, like I said, that if they have children at home, they start treating the other person that is a millennial at work is also like the child. I mean, there's a difference between a 10th class person and somebody who's probably a 15, 20, and 20 years in the corporate industry. So that treatment that is being given to a 10th grade student at home, and then showing the same treatment to your team members, is that, I mean, is that fair? That is my point.
No, no, it's not fair. Definitely, it's not fair. So I totally agree with you. It's not fair. That's what I can just say in a nutshell. And then the next thing I will say is who you are expecting it from. So the person who's doing this at work, if that is what they have been doing it to their own kids, that is my point. How can you expect something different from them? That is exactly my point. That just because किसी के बाल सफेद हो गए हैं या ये है तो we just say कि okay, now you can handle this responsibility at workplace. I'm saying no, they can't. They are not qualified. Just because they are old enough, in my own opinion, they are not qualified for this thing. So organizations have to be very careful that who they appoint, how they run this initiative, because this problem is very sensitive from that point. And and just because someone is there and you just put them in charge of this thing is going to ruin it even more.
I will just share a personal story. So I was like totally in line with what you were saying, Sachin. I mean, I was a kid when I was like maybe 2, 3 years old. Then we like had like television. I mean, I was given all the access to television all the time. And because my dad used to keep going here and there, my mom was also busy at home. Fine. Now when I see people who are of little elder to me, maybe 5, 10, 15 years elder to me, and now they're kids. It's like we grew up with television, and they are now growing up like they're born and they're 2 years old, and what happens that they're all the time watching the now, the thing is that when I started working in a firm, so that was a small firm. But one thing I realized, and now I'm going towards the solution of how I saw it and how I experienced it. It was like very, very, very well managed. I still I still left the job, 1 year later, but whole 1 year, I was all the time, 7, my boss was my inspiration, and I was observing him all the time, and I have learned like myriads of things from him. And he was a 65-year-old man that time. He must be 70, 71 now. And I used to sit beside him, his cubicle, and he was like my inspiration. Now he was an old man. He was not from the generation, which my age people. He was a little elder to that, very experienced. So now I saw his ways of managing the office. Now the reason why I left was more on the emotional side rather than the financial and all that side. Now the thing is that every time he would observe all these people. Now it was possible because it was a small organization. He would observe everybody, and in case there's a time when somebody is emotional or somebody is going through any kind of turmoil, he would personally actually talk to people, and he was spared the whole group of now a big organization. But at that point of time also he was preparing every person to be you know connected with each other. So his ways of dealing with people were very different from how people who are maybe like 15, 20, 25 years elder to me, how they deal with people. So the tolerance level has decreased. I would like to use the word tolerance specifically from that generation, and it has been decreasing like more and more and more and more, towards the coming generations. So there was a good part in decrease of tolerance. Too much of tolerance is also not, it does not lead to growth, but too less tolerance again becomes a problem. So he would train every single person in a way in an organization. Everyone was given, enough, at least some time to be seen, to be heard, to be accepted. And we would treat each other like a family. Now, this becomes a problem when it's a bigger setup. That is like then, and it's really hard, to even manage people that way. But financially, it wasn't very financially. I mean, when people change um, organizations, they get a good amount of hike. But staying in the same organization, still he used to take care that everybody is well compensated. Along with that, there were so many other type of compensations which were included. Fine. We used to go for yearly trips, and there was enough. I mean, he used to pay for different skills for different employees. If somebody is interested in tech, he would ask them to go for a computer training. If somebody is interested in um, some kind of a different skill, they would go for a different skill. So these things were done, and they were done actually very well. I left the organization, maybe 20-25% is the attrition rate. I left for whatever reasons, personal reasons, emotional reasons. But uh, around 75% people actually stay in that organization, and they have been working for 10 years, like since it started. So that used to amaze me so much, because the kind of devotion people develop, because they're actually happy in that environment. So that was my experience, and that was what I learned from him. But he was not from exactly, he was a little older, and he came from a very different generation. So his way of treating the employees was very different than a 50-year-old would do. So that was something which I observed. And yeah,
Thank
that's all
you.
from my side.
Really good. Thank you. Yes. Uh, this person is almost like skipped one generation and was one generation parents के ऊपर की generation, like दादा वाली generation होगी
Yes,
just.
yes.
Yeah. So that is the thing that I feel we
And one more point, that the whole office was full of millennials. There was not even a single person who was not a millennial. So everybody was a millennial.
hmm. Pradeep, let's come back to you. I have finished my point. So you raised that question. So let's revisit that question. I would like to hear your points on it now.
No, my still the belief is that definitely parenting is an influencing factor in how an individual react to the situation once they have grown up. But that's one of the variables. If we see the parenting also have evolved, and typically I used to say that in today's world, every 10 years the generation changes. I think that millennial and Gen X and Gen Z distribution is a little wider, but the kind of behavior attribute which you see coming across being exhibited by these fresh graduates of early 2000, fresh graduate of late 2000, then fresh graduates of early 10, 11, 12, 14 kind of graduate guys. It has been a pattern which we are seeing in terms of their willingness to grow, and it's a distribution, but common trend decides their uh, way to respond to a certain scenario. Few are fighters who will stay with you whether ups and down happens. Few are just self focused, and they say then step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, they keep hopping around. So correlation directly with the parenting, correlation with education can be done, right? The colleges which used to happen in when we graduated in 80s 90s time frame, it means that generation X people, and the colleges setup which was available to millennials has also evolved a lot, and a lot of privatization in the education came in, where it was more of a degree dispersal with quality of education getting impacted, and the checks and balances were a little low. So and the third thing is the individual buying capacity, the way it has evolved with time, which we have seen with our previous generation. they have a limited option to exhibit the money for. In today's world, as you said, you order anything on Amazon today, and it will be delivered tomorrow. So the way they are able to manage between their actual need vis-a-vis what they can afford as an individual, and then keep talking about running, and they have started looking at the value system which is directly linked to the money part. Earlier the value system was very much appreciative of the facts that how honest a person has been, how hardworking an individual has been. But
I
currently if we see that value system, it has I'll use the word deterioration, where everyone may not agree, but that deterioration to judge everything in terms of money has come in today, which again is a giving of not parenting, but the way we evaluate the success in today's world. And that may have been a prime factor for this differentiation. That's what my thoughts are.
Sure. So, Pradeep, my question to you is what these points that you have listed are, I agree with those points. Um, but what I'm getting from your conversation is that you are listing these points and you are you are putting parenting aside. So as if like these two things are not linked to. So tell me one thing: these points you have linked listed. Who is supposed to educate them about all this? So everything is fine. You said things have changed, things have evolved. We are doing things differently, more convenience now, more this, that. Everything is fine. But then who is supposed to educate them about all this? How to handle this? Whose responsibility is this? To educate this generation about um, so our kids uh, even after millennials now things have gone even more easier for our kids. So who's responsible for educating them about how to handle this convenience? So as Anamika said that tolerance level is diminishing. So whose responsibility it is to educate this generation or our kids generation about all this?
So basically, this generation Z, our kids level, which you are talking about, and millennials, actually, there's a little difference. The way generation Z may have a solution, and the millennials may have a solution. And I'll sound too much parenting age of those late 50s, which I don't want to sound, where we think that we were right and these generations are wrong. It's not about a matter of right or wrong, it's about the realization to them. So for millennials, which was the topic of today's discussion, I think the solution lies in defining the way we deal with each other, whether it is professionally or whether we deal with or meet with individuals in the social gathering. We define ourselves. There is no direct solution lies on, but sharing the transparency and knowing how others vis-a-vis those individuals or the batches in the previous age has performed in the benefits and negatives of it, because everyone is mature adult, they can decide about themselves. What you can do is you can make them aware so that they can take a calculative call in terms of whether it is in terms of some benefits, whether
I,
it is
I,
in
I would
terms of their satisfaction or their emotional quotient of individual level, which gives them satisfaction as far as the professional achievement in their life is concerned. Sorry.
but Pradeep, you are assuming that they are capable of understanding this. The way you are explaining, you are assuming that if we make them aware, if we tell them this, then they are adult enough to understand this. But isn't that assumption itself is wrong? That is the whole point. That is the whole question over here. You're assuming that it's only a matter of sharing this with them and making them aware. But how do you make someone aware about something which they have not realized in their whole life? That's the whole that is where we are kind of circling in this whole point over here. That how as Vidya was saying, if they have not listened to their own parents, why would they listen to someone at work? So you are assuming that it's a lack of information. Is it really lack of information? Is it really that they didn't know about this, or we have, if we tell them, we make them aware, and then problem will be solved?
See, telling and preaching is never a solution with the mature adults. I strongly believe they take their own calculated decision based on the parenting, based on their education, based on their life which they have lived, their friend circle. It all contributes to what type of individuals they are today. I can correlate the thought process with, if you want someone to leave smoking and he's a chain smoker, how can you make him realize that he has to leave it? I have never seen any smoker who wants to leave smoking, but just by preaching, he has left it. It's more of a self realization whenever any individual achieve on, they exhibit a change as an outcome. Now, whether it is leaving smoking or whether it is professionally getting more aligned by realizing positives and negatives, it's more of an information which is always available, but which is presented to them, and then the way to re-emphasize it so that at some point in time they can take a self calculation. As you rightly said, we cannot go back and do the parenting again. These are my viewpoints. I may be digressing from the pitch, but I definitely picked your point, Sachin, that if they are not well equipped with their brain networks, with their upbringing, to even understand those factors, even telling them will not solve the problem. I agree.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So yes, I feel this is fine. Still, where I am kind of, I think we may be on the same, we may be saying the same thing, but I'm not hearing it. That's why I wanted to. So this is one part. This is one part of the equation. So what you are explaining is how to explain it to the millennials. That is one part. Let me take an example of what I want to say. Let's say Anamika mentioned the point of tolerance. So very well understood that the tolerance level, again we are generalizing, and let's okay, like let's just generalize for now for this discussion, because we can't really go into, let's say 80% are like that, 20% will have a lot of good tolerance also. Let's forget about that. So for this talk, let's just generalize and say, generally speaking, this generation has low tolerance. Now let's assume an organization. Let's not talk about anyone's organization right now. Let's just talk in terms of a story. So there is an organization. In that organization there is a lot of millennials that work, and the senior leadership is either Gen X or maybe the baby boomers over there right now. So they are more tolerant. They understand the value of the tolerance and all that. But let's say, for example, they have not been very tolerant with their own kids. Okay, so they know that tolerance is required. This generation is very less tolerant. They're talking about it. They want to develop tolerance in this generation. But then, if this leadership is not able to handle the mistakes done, or not able to handle that transition process, it's not only just the Gen Y going through the transition. Even the ones who are hand holding them, is they are also going through the transition. Huh? So while these people are learning, while they are kind of, let's say, reparenting, without we saying that they are being reparented, but let's say that is what exactly what is happening. The initiative is that. So their buy-in is there. They want to, but just because we have asked or we have said this, थोड़ी वो एक दिन में tolerant बन जाएंगे. तो they are going through a process. In that process, they are still going to make mistakes. They are still going to be intolerant. They are still going to be this and that and all that. So how prepared the leadership team is to handle that transition? Because just by saying this is what is required and we are doing this, we are taking this initiative, but then we are also focused on our targets, and all that are there and things are there, which is, again, I'm not debating anything. I'm just saying how ready the whole leadership team is also for this transition to take place, and do we have appointed the right kind of people in this initiative to lead this? Just because We feel someone is old enough or experienced enough and can talk about these things and can make people aware about these things. But how they actually are, talking is one thing, explaining it to other people is one thing, making them aware is one thing, but then ground reality, when the problem hits, when the shit hits the fan, how does someone react to it? If they are reacting in a totally different way, what they have been saying and what they have been preaching or making people aware, then again this is catch 22. They are just going to leave because they are going to see
Correct.
the incongruency in that whole thing, that this person says one thing but then does totally different thing. It's just like that. So how ready we are as organizations, as corporates, to actually tackle this problem? That is the question.
Correct. No, I agree that we may not be ready to that extent, so that these can be parented without telling them that this is the upbringing type of corrections which are being done.
Exactly, exactly. We don't have to label it like that. Now, we don't have to tell people that, oh, you
Correct.
were parented, so now I am reparenting. We don't have to label things. But initiatives need to be in such a way that people kind of just buy into that, right? They feel like joining that initiative. They feel like this is good for me. I need to learn this. I need to be this. But then people who are running this initiative, I feel they need the training first. They need to be retrained first, is how to handle this generation, because they don't know how to handle this generation. That's the whole problem. Like I am generalizing millennials, I'm also generalizing their parents. That and I'm not saying every parent had the problem, but just for the conversation, I'm generalizing them also. That the whole problem that this generation is like this is because the parents were like that. And if the parents were like that and now they are in corporate at high leadership roles and everything, then they are just going to repeat the same problem there also. So even their retraining is required. And if, in fact, that is required first, then solving this problem. We talk about retaining millennials, but the actual problem, in my opinion, lies in not retaining millennials, but people who are trying to retain millennials.
Correct.
Anything anyone wants to say? Vidya, Jaspreet, Anamika, Kavita, you haven't said anything. You said you'll talk later. So, is there anything you want to say now?
Yeah, Sachin, I want to add something. Like you very well said that they also need the training. What level of value system also they want to focus on. For example, if these generation know that we want to grow our business, but on what perspectives they want to grow, or at the cost of transparency, or at the cost of compromising the this authenticity. So that is also very important, because if that leadership is not aware about of that cultural values, I think the organization cannot grow into that level.
True, true. That is very true. What you said, Jaspreet, and especially in millennials, one of the things which they are very much driven by, once again, generalization, and I think for talk we have to generalize, um, that millennials want transparency, they want clarity, they want a sense of purpose.
Correct. Yeah.
All
Yeah.
these things are very important for them, which may not have been that much important for Gen X. Gen X were, again, generalizing, were more, ambitious in nature towards getting a certain title in an organization, reaching a certain position in an organization. So, riding the corporate ladder, I want to reach here by this age, I want to reach here, I want to be this, I want to be that. So Gen X was more ambitious from that. Gen Y, titles don't matter that much. They are very much happy to leave their corporate career and start a startup because that gives them more sense of purpose and fulfills their value than being called a certain title in a certain organization. It doesn't attract them that much. So now, someone who is driven by that, if they are trying to inspire or motivate this generation by telling them you should aspire to this, you should aspire to that, clearly there is a misalignment. Clearly, there is a one person is telling that you should aspire for this, you should aim for that. I see a lot of potential in you. You can become this. But the other person doesn't want to become. They don't care about all these things. So what you mentioned is also understanding the value system of the new generation and retraining myself to deal with that one rather than me telling them you should think like that, you should aim for that, you can become this in this, you can uh, become this position in this year time and all that. They don't want it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can see in my even recently one of my one fresher joined my company, and she was really a fresher, and I can see my weak leadership of my HOD couldn't see that value system was not there, and she was really purposely handling everything that is because she was very ambitious girl. She was none of her business whether it will impact the company's. This company's performance also because she was not contributing to that much but we were doing it, but my HOD was so ignorant about it that she was not having that kind of aspirations what we were having, and we were putting that effort. Still she was getting that platform of being taken up to that, and she has left the organization within 2 years also. She has gone to that level of senior AM level and got the salary that level, and now she left the organization within a month. So I can well see where the person who is already into the system and the person from the new generation, their aspirations are totally different. They damn care about other roles and responsibility. They are just least bothered about other things. They are just satisfied their needs, their performance and worthiness as compared to the salaries. So I think so that really gives you another picture of the this new generation aspects.
Yes, absolutely. And for that reason, I feel that when we talk about retaining millennials, it is not a linear, one-dimensional kind of a talk. It has to be looked into from both sides. Who we are retaining and who is trying to retain. Both people need to be retrained. It's a complete shift, and as I said that whatever has happened in this generation has now happened. So now the slack has to be picked up by the corporate. Now the slack has to be picked up by the leadership team, and that is the current reality of this situation. That this is what it is. We cannot send them back to school and back to parenting. So they are adults now, and things need to be handled very sensitively without actually they feeling like as if uh, they are they are blamed for anything because they have nothing to be blamed for. It is not what they asked for. It's just what happened to them. So there is no fault of their own in this. This whole generation has no fault in this. It's just what has happened, and the topic is very sensitive from that point is to deal with it that way. That they don't feel that they are blamed for it. That you are not tolerant, you are not patient, you are not this. Yes, they are not because nobody taught them any of that. Nobody taught them these values. They never had those whatever they wanted. They ask their parents, and their parents will make it their own mission to make sure that my kid has demanded this, and I will make sure that I buy it for them. So they did that, and now when they have grown up, if the same parents say you don't have patience, you don't have tolerance, the kids will be confused. What are you even talking about? What patience? What tolerance? You never made me wait for anything. I asked you this today in the morning, and by evening you have bought it for me. and now they are talking about patience and tolerance. So it's not their fault, and this will be very evident in the corporate also. Very impatient, intolerant workforce, people not gelling with each other because the social skills were not developed, the emotional intelligence was not developed. More and more rise in the conflicts, more and more rise in people not aspiring to go for the leadership roles. That is another problem that will start becoming very evident. That uh, earlier it was a different problem. More and more people wanted to aspire for a certain position in the company. So the corporate was seeing a lot of politics happening. Over the coming years, probably you will not see much politics happening because nobody wants that position. They are very happy in what they are doing, and you will have another problem where lack of leaders to actually lead the initiative, good leaders to be there. So the problem is very deep than what it looks like, and will become more prominent in coming years as this generation will reach middle management and senior management roles. This problem will become even more evident then. So right now this generation has reached middle management role. Not so many people have reached the senior management, senior leadership roles yet, but just a matter of time. In next few years, this will start to happen. So important to consider what needs to be done now, and very sensitively. Cool. I think I have talked enough on this topic. We have gone past the time also. Is there anything else anyone wants to say, or should we wrap up the call? Namita, anything from your side?
Not from my side.
No, nothing from my side as well, Sachin. Although this is a very wide topic, if we start, digging deep into, what could be the possible reasons, um, speaking even in a generic sense, then also there are a lot of things which we need to look into.
See,
And also I feel that it's not, even imagining that you can retain 100% people in the organization, that's wishful thinking. But I guess there would be some attrition, some people leaving because of whatever reasons. But I guess even if we reach a good percentage in an organization, then we have, you know actually understood and done the work well.
yeah, I agree. I agree that there is a lot to be discussed in this, and in 1 hour, this is so. I would suggest that we don't have to conclude this topic today itself. We can keep the conversation open, and maybe next week we can add another element to this, and explore this from another factor or something. So we don't have to just discuss everything in one call, in 1 hour. So I'm happy for any suggestions in this area itself. We can make it as a call agenda, and we can talk and just maybe take one factor, one element, and spend 1 hour in just that. Uh, because today was very open. Today was just like we touched a lot of things. So we can just touch only one thing and only talk about that in the next call. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yes, we can. Yeah, it's a really wider topic. We can discuss on this a lot.
Yeah, the more we talk, the more things become clearer as well. I feel that I've always it talk always helped me whenever I am feeling confused about something. Verbalizing it and talking, brainstorming has always helped me. I'm not saying that's what would work for everyone. Just sharing my own personal experience that brainstorming, talking always helps me to clarify my own thought process. So if that is something which works for you guys as well or anyone, then we can always have this talk. And uh, objective of this is not to conclude anything. There is nothing to conclude here. It is was just about some points Pradeep shared, Jaspreet shared, Vidya shared, I shared, and that's it. There is no conclusion. There is no. We don't have to summarize it. We don't have to say this is what it means and all that. Nothing. Just every point came on the table, and I think that's it. That's the whole objective. Just everyone just put their points on the table. Whoever wants to take whatever point can take, can contemplate, can implement, and then share in the group as well that I heard this point and I tried it in my organization and this is the result I saw. Would be great to see that also. So no summary, no conclusion of this call, just conversation. Okay, great. All right, guys. So let's conclude it and thanks for joining. Hope you enjoy your rest
Thank
of
you
your.
so much,
Yeah.
Gurman.
Thank
Thanks,
Thank you.
you.
everyone.
Thank you, Sachin.
Thank you.
Always. Namika and
Happy
Sachin
Sunday.
Thank you,
always
Sachin.
Enjoy
rock.
the
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Vidya.
much. Bye.
Good day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.